Since ancient times, women have been the epicenter of their villages and communities around the world, and as such, have been gathering in council to discuss topics relevant to them. Here, we are masterminding and exploring these topics in a modern way with entrepreneurs, speakers, coaches, and just overall good eggs, pun intended. This is The Council. Hi, and welcome to episode 4 of the Council podcast and vlog. Wow, today was an incredible episode. We talked about inner authority with my good friend, Sabrina Suarez. She is an epic leader in this world. She is up to really big things, and both in her job as a social worker, as well as in the women's group that she has created, as well as the Leaders Who Love group that she's created. So we'll get more into the details about that. But the topic was inner authority, and this was just really intriguing because it's all about tapping into your own self, really, your intuition, your gut, your instinct, your higher self, whatever it is, whatever terminology that, suits you, but really about how to tap into that, why it's important, what we've historically done, and how we can support others in tapping into their own inner authority as well. We get into the differences and the bringing together of the masculine and feminine energies as well, and how that can be applied to your inner authority. So we touch on a lot of things, but it was really amazing. There's a lot of nuggets of wisdom, and we have a little fun. We're like, we can't help but laugh and giggle together so much. So I hope you enjoy, and please remember to subscribe and give us, leave us a rating and a review. And I look forward to hearing how you like the podcast in this episode. All right, enjoy. Okay, hello everybody. I'm super excited per usual for our High Priestess of the Day, which, by the way, I have decided I'm going to change it to the High Priestess in Charge. If you've ever heard of like HPIC, well, this is like your HPIC. So our HPIC is Sabrina Suarez, who is a dear friend of mine. She is a social worker who works on reforming criminal justice. She is an intuitive leadership coach. She is the founder of Savvy Artistry and the Leaders of Love community, which is a community focused on empowering leaders in the world to be up to powerful things and be in contribution in a loving way. She does so many wonderful things. She's also a founder of the Walking in Beauty women's group that is for coaching in a kind and inclusive community. And I met Sabrina through a women's workshop called Grace, and it was epic. And we were, we just really connected and really got on in that workshop. And I just love her dearly. So I'm super excited. Welcome.
Thank you. I love that. I love that intro.
You're welcome. Well, I mean,
I love hearing
literally you. So you just so you think you're really cool, Sabrina?
I mean, just a little bit. Could you tell?
Just a little. Well, yeah, I'm super excited. I feel like this is long overdue. Like you are probably the person who was the catalyst for encouraging me to even do this podcast blog thing.
Oh my God, that's so
yeah. I know. Weird, right? Like I remember this was just like a seed, and that's where I actually got the name for this. Was I was like inspired in our workshop, because it was just like women in council talking about topics important to us. So yeah, you like spurred that for me.
Oh my God. I feel like I need to take a moment just to be like, well.
I feel like I should take a moment for you. Like we'll have a moment of silence in respect and appreciation for Sabrina.
Oh my God. Yay. More things for me to be proud of.
Yes. Put a little badge on you. Okay, so everyone's just gonna need to get used to like we have a lot of giggling together. So it's just
yeah. And like a little like side comments too.
Yeah, it's just gonna be, it is what it is. So tell us, I would love for you to, from like your point of view, can you tell us a little bit more about Leaders Who Love and Walking in Beauty?
Yeah, so I started Walking in Beauty back in, I want to say 2018. And my whole vision then was to have a community of women where we could empower each other, like create a safe space where they could communicate what it is and what it meant to them to be a woman. So it had originally started out as that, and then over time it's morphed into like people not only getting support and but also like me having the ability to coach and like provide inspiring content, people to share. It's turned into like there's a spirituality element in there, just like all of those deep, like really good juicy things that are a part of womanhood, like, and in a very inclusive way also. It's just in this community, and I'm really really like honored and inspired by the things that I see people post and like the sense of community that I see in there. So yeah.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think it's important that there's a space created that's really safe for women to be
Mm-hmm.
able to, you know, share everything that's on their mind and have like support of one another and empower one another. I feel like we need more and more of that genuine kind of effort. So that's amazing. And I love the name Walking in Beauty. Like
I
it's
know. So it's funny because it was named something else before, and then I have this card deck that I really love. It's an oracle card deck.
uh,
And there's this one card called Walking in Beauty. And just the meaning behind it is so just like spoke to my soul. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is what it means. And then I made my coaching program off of that. And it's basically just finding the beautiful in things and like being truly appreciative and in gratitude for the simple things that were offered, and how like if you find the gratitude and the meaning and the beauty in the little things, then your life will reflect that beauty.
Mm, I love that. That's so beautiful. And I actually want to take one like offshoot of what you were just saying. You mentioned oracle cards. So I'm gonna like go ahead and preface. This is actually a perfect time to bring it up because this episode is about inner authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that ties so much when you're like doing like, you know, tarot cards, or someone yesterday told me it was called tarot. I don't know. I'm gonna call it tarot cards. And oracle cards and like crystals and all that stuff. And I would love um, to kind of talk about that stuff a little bit because I know it's getting like really popular, and I myself haven't really dove into that stuff until, I mean, like yesterday was the first time I went to like a crystal shop, and I was just kind of like, I don't know, it's something I thought about doing, and I was like, well, you know, I can finally go into a shop again. Why don't I go poke around? And yeah, it was really interesting because I know like so many people have like teased others about using crystals and like the powers and like what they mean and everything like that. So I would love to get your 2 cents on that.
Yeah, so it's so interesting because it sounds like you're where I was like a little over a year ago. I was just kind of exploring it like very minimally, like no pressure or anything. But before then, I really had a closed off kind of mentality to spirituality because growing up, it was something that I did not feel was for me. I really had a negative association with it. I really did not like it wasn't my jam. And then with exploring more of myself and kind of just like what that means to me, like what myself means to me, there was this element in there that was missing. And at the time, I didn't know it was spirituality, but now I do.
Yeah.
And I started exploring, being more open to it, seeing it in a more positive light. And then it just kind of started coming where I naturally was picking up on things and I was naturally being drawn to things like crystals, cards. Like I now got Reiki certified. I am learning about Tantra. Like all of these things are so powerful, but I think that get cast aside because we can't necessarily like
Explain.
yeah, like explain, or like we can't see it, there's no evidence
Mhm.
necessarily, so there it's just like, oh well, you know, like
Well, and
that's not
that's
real.
That's the interesting part because, you know, like similarly, like I grew up Catholic, so it was very,
Mhm.
very like closed off from any of that that's outside of the church's authority. So I feel like spirituality is all about your inner authority and like what works and speaks to you. And yeah, I mean, I used to be like, oh, crystals, that's crazy. And then my friend Julie, I remember we were in a car ride for like an hour and a half, and I was having this meltdown. Like I was in like full on like meltdown mode. I don't even know about what, but I was just like, oh my God, like the world, everything sucks. Like, she was just like,
It's
basically
another
like, shut
Tuesday.
up and hold this crystal. And I was like, you're fucking crazy, but I don't know what's going on right now. So fine, I'll hold your stupid crystal. And I mean, none of that was said between us, but I just felt like there was an underlying like,
That was the vibe.
just like trying to get over it already. And I was like, honestly, it's probably me saying it to myself. So I'm holding this crystal in the car, and I swear to God, in like 3 minutes, I just feel like everything, all my energy, I just felt better. I don't know what it was. I can't explain any of it. I just felt better. And whether, you know, it was like, this has magical powers or like, or whatever, I don't know, whatever the explanation is for like crystals and that kind of thing. Or it was just like I don't know, maybe me just being able to release like, and using like some sort of tool and focusing on something, or like really like stepping into my spirituality because I'm believing in something greater than myself, whatever that is. I think that's where, especially for women, we get really, really powerful because, you know, there's always been this like phrase, you know, a woman's intuition. And I believe it's because we're so able to connect like internally to our own inner authority and to spirituality. And I think that we're really told by other authorities not to do that because that makes us empowered. And that makes us,
Yeah.
you know, like we're able to do things that not everybody on this world has always wanted women to be able to do. And
Hmm.
so it's interesting. So it's like cool to hear you say, like, I feel like it's like I'm looking at myself in like, you know, a year maybe in my own spirituality journey, because it is
Mhm.
very new, and a lot of it is literally just like talking to myself and listening to like, okay, what's really right for me.
Yeah, I think that there's like I could go on so many tangents with this, but
Let's do
I
it.
think that
I'm
there
here for all the tangents.
yes, all right, let me get comfortable.
Okay. I love how the background around you is like so
Yeah,
just like,
like woo.
it's fine.
Um yeah, like I think that there's such a truth to what you said, just about it is really about igniting that inner power for us. And we could find that in many different realms. Like it could be via our personal fitness journey, it could be via our like relationships. But I think that there's an underlying element of spirituality which I denied for a long time. Like there is something within me that I can just trust and know is always there and will guide me, and I don't have to even believe that that's anything outside of myself. Like people, you know, like how far they go with the spirituality is up to them and what they're comfortable with. But I feel like it could be just my relationship with me, and that is what spirituality is underlying. And
Mm.
it is just what I like to describe as my well. Like it's the well that I'm pulling from, it's what I mean to me and what I'm guiding myself to do. And there's nothing like it. And honestly, the most in tuned and grounded and good I've ever felt about myself has come from an intentional connection to that spirituality.
Mm.
And again, my definition of it, it doesn't have to be like I abide by whatever. Like, and I find honestly that's where we get caught up with religion sometimes, is when we then like put rules to it. And that's what religion is. And so then it's like, if we just take it back to this simple relationship with self, like what is my deep inner knowing and my inner self trying to tell me? What is my higher self trying to tell me? Like we use that word a lot in self-development, and it's like there's some truth to it if we want to go there. The source is where we get to decide like what that means for us, but it's so powerful and it's so easy to access. I
Mm.
think that when we just take away the judgment And like you're saying, there's a judgment overall in society surrounding us just even accessing a part of ourselves. And so like we get to decide how we do that. I think spirituality is one of the best ways.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I like what you said about like, it doesn't have to be anything outside of yourself. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's probably one of the most powerful things about, an inner authority is that it doesn't have to be something like transcending you to you. It could just be yourself. And I do love the term higher self. And again, it doesn't have to mean like, oh, you're, this other being outside of you.
Yeah.
No, it's literally just like, you're going back to that intuition, call it your gut, call it your instinct, whatever, works for you as an individual, like listening to that. And when, we all know, I'm sure we can all think of a time where we had that, that intuition poking at us and we didn't listen, and
Yeah.
bada boom, bada bing, we're in a and we could have not been in if we had listened to that
Mm-hmm.
inner authority, that higher self who's really guiding you to your your potential, your highest good, like whatever it is that's truly in alignment for you and like your heart, like your heart's desires and what you want. And
Yeah.
one thing I find, I want to circle back on something else, but before
Mm-hmm.
that, one thing I find interesting, or not really interesting, but like I think I noticed finally was, whether it's, personal development, or you're seeing a therapist, or you're going to, a group, like a women's group or something, like whatever the thing is, it always goes back to asking prompts to yourself. Like you don't,
Yeah.
like there may be some insight or some coaching that you glean from somebody, but ultimately it's what I find really supportive is like the coaches that I worked with, and one especially right now, her name's Melissa Catherine, and she's just amazing. She'll give me coaching and then she'll say, does that land for you? And sometimes I'll
Mm-hmm.
be like, I think you got a little off on this part. But in general, yes, or, whatever it is. And it's like, it still is using your inner authority is still your sounding board for everything.
Yeah, I think that there's so much truth to that. Like when I think of my most powerful connected to myself moments, I think of when I have just checked in with myself simply, like plain and simple. Something's happening around me, all these external things might be going on, and I'm just like, do you feel aligned to this? Like, do you feel like this will further you? Do you feel like you've done this before? How has it ended? I'm just drawing upon my own knowledge that I possess for myself. And honestly, a lot of people have so much wisdom that they don't give themselves credit for. And then they make the same like choices over and over and over again. And they end up at the end of their life being like, well, I shouldn't have done that. And I regret this. And I wish I had done this. And I think it's so sad. And I put myself in that perspective a lot where I'm just like, at the end of my life, what do I want to look back and say that I did? And if the only person, like the most consistent person in my life is going to be me, how am I going to have that relationship look like? And it's so empowering to me to look at myself as like my own partner, like my best friend, the person that's my like guide looking out for me. Like, and again, that doesn't stem outside of me from me. So it's like me thinking about, okay, I chose this life and I put myself here. Like, what am I meant to learn? How am I meant to impact? And just over and over and over again, checking in with myself, asking myself powerful questions, which anybody can do. And anybody has such like a wealth of knowledge in their own experience, in their own body, in their own mind. And if they just accessed it more intentionally, then they'd have a lot more answers than they think.
Yeah, I think that's, excuse me. I think that's so true. Like there's everything we have is like right at our fingertips. And I feel like there's some monk saying that's always like, like I don't, something about like you already having all the answers, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like the answers within something
Hmm.
like that.
It sounds seriously so cliche.
It does.
Like for the people who are not even super into spirituality, or they're like just wanting to know how to better their relationship with themselves, just check in
Yeah.
and do it in an authentic, caring way. The
Mhm.
same way if your kid had something going on with them, you'd ask them in a like nurturing, absolutely caring way, like, what is going on? How
Yeah.
can I support? Like the same way you'd ask your spouse or your, mother, whoever it is, like ask yourself. People don't think to do that. Like, are you comfortable?
Right.
How are you feeling? And then like trust it as a
Yeah.
valid opinion, because we invalidate ourselves
Mhm.
often.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Trust as a valid opinion, like this matters and this is just as important as if it was someone else saying this, and honor yourself by making the choices that actually reflect that knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's just like that checkpoint and doing that
Hmm.
for yourself on a regular basis. Like I always, for me, I know something that's really supportive is asking like, is this serving me? Is
Hmm.
this actually in alignment? Is this what I really want? Oh, this is a good one. And I feel like you can relate on this one. We're kind of similar in this way, like being the like overachievers and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's asking, is this what I really want to do, or is this what I think I'm supposed to do? So
Yeah.
that comes a lot up for like achieving the next accolade or
Hmm.
something of that nature. It's like, oh, do I really want to do this, or do I just feel like I'm supposed to? And I think
Yeah.
that's really important because it could I think if you ask others around you, we all have like our external authority figures, whether it's, yeah, maybe it's your religion, maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your best friend, maybe it's your boss. And it's ways to really not be engaged with ourselves. Not that you can't still have those sounding boards, but really knowing that like you get to have the ultimate say, because in your gut and your intuition what's really good for you or not. So something for me that like there may be an opportunity and it's like everyone will say like, oh, that is so great, you should totally do that, that is just so kick-ass. But something inside of me is like, yeah, I don't actually think that's going to serve me in like the for what I'm up to, like what I really want to create.
Yeah. Honestly, I called last year the year of like being a yes woman kind of thing, and it was because I wanted to do it all and there were so many opportunities available to me, so I just like said yes, 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 yes. And then at the end of the year I found myself then being in burnout, where I had to intentionally step back on a lot of things and take a break. And it was because I had just like shamelessly, like without actually thinking about myself, been like, I will do this for everyone else first. And that was my intention, is like, this person wants me to do this, so I can make it work. And I made it work. Like, created a lot of things, did a lot of good in the world, like gave my time, like, which is invaluable. And I did it. And then at the end I was so empty, in in a way that was just like, I have nothing left to give to myself. Like, I was so full of like connection and all the things I did for everyone else, but my personal well was empty, and it was like, I literally cannot go on. I am just so burnt. I'm at this point like putting on a face if I try to go on further, and that is irresponsible. Like, I determined that that would be irresponsible to continue to try to keep going and give and give and give when I knew I had nothing left.
Yeah.
And I think there's also something super powerful to be said about the fact that, like, if you're at that point, at any point in time, you could be like, I've had enough. I need to fill my cup. And it doesn't have to be that your cup stays empty, and it doesn't have to be that you've made irreparable damage. Like, you could just decide at any given time that I've had enough and I need to do something for myself. And you have that full permission. I
Yeah.
think another thing as women is like, we absolutely have it conditioned that we need to ask for permission. And like you're saying, there's these outer authorities, and we think that we need permission from them, but in reality, the only permission that we ever need is from ourselves. And we will be the first and the most frequent person to keep it from ourselves.
I have like chills, like literally, if you could see them, like I have fucking chills because there was so much gold in that. I wish I had I had written down on a notepad because I'm just like, that was fucking amazing. Also, side note, yes, I'm double fisting tea and I already had a second one prepared.
Wow, slow down.
I know, I need to get that off.
No, you do you, boo. Keep it going.
I just need a little bit, but I do, no, gosh, there was so much gold in that. Like, I think, the first thing you said in that, now I'm losing it. Can we rewind?
Yeah, you're like, I see it floating away.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I got it. No, it is crazy town because you and I, like, I experienced the same thing this last year. And honestly, it's probably a buildup of a lot of time. But especially this last year, it was like, I signed up to do all the things. I, started like a really, a job that had a lot more pressure and responsibility on me. And just so many other things were happening. And I did not take care of myself in the sense of just saying no. Even when I was home, I was still like, okay, like, yeah, I'll go do this or, I'll do that. And it was like, I don't actually want to do these things. I felt like I had a lot of obligation to say yes to things. And, I love that I'm like a spontaneous person. I'm very, like, you can like easily enroll me into anything, like I'm just like, I love adventure and it's spontaneity and like all those things.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but it's that like, for me, it was January, February. I was like, I was traveling almost every weekend and none of it really felt truly enjoyable. Like there was only a handful of times where I was like, oh, I feel good. Like I tell my mom, I was like, I can't even see my shadow. I'm like moving at such a fast pace. And I'm, again, like on paper up to such big things, but like, oh my gosh, it's draining me. So now for me, like quarantine couldn't have come at a better time because it has stopped my constant doing and is really having me get in tune with my being and my inner authority of like, recently I've said no to some like pretty amazing like opportunities, like, things are popping up for free that are like awesome things that I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna have to pass this time around,
Yeah, so true. And I think that just to, like, you said something that stuck with me, which was obligation. Like, I think I have this obligation to say yes because whatever reason. And it's like the only obligation we have is to ourselves. And what I said about responsibility, it's like we think of responsibility, we think of like caring for children, we think of our job obligations, we think of whatever. But even more simple and even more important is our obligation and responsibility to ourselves, because we are the ones creating whatever it is in our life. And if we don't actually care for that responsibility and treat it like it's the most important thing, then we end up in these places. And it's very similar to you. Like, I have so many opportunities coming at me all the time. And every time I get approached with something new, now, this is not how I always was, but now I like check in and I'm like, all right, I'll let you know. And I check in, I'm like, what am I currently doing? Will this work? Will this further me? Is it actually going to complement what I'm going for, what my intention is for myself and my life? And then being like, okay, I can't in good conscience say yes. Or like, I will ask for all the information and then think about it. Versus before I'd be like, yeah. And then down the road be like, either really uncomfortably like avoiding the conversation because I don't want to tell them no and disappoint them, or then sticking it out and being miserable. And neither one of those sounds like a good time. So I just stopped.
Sounds like a bad time. No, I hear you. It's like, it's like, I think as women, part of it is like we're naturally very supportive and want to nurture and lift up others. That's why we're
Okay. I want to say something about that though.
but I was gonna say, but I think we're also taught to always be putting others in front of ourselves and nurturing and not always like doing that for ourselves. Now insert what you're
Yes. So what you said was naturally. And I think that that's such a conditioned thing rather than a natural thing.
I
You
think
know what I mean?
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Yes, please tell or expand.
please go on. I feel like, because honestly, it stems into so many other things, because if we are not that way, like I'll speak for myself. Personally, I do not feel all that nurturing as my sole thing. Like my natural state is not very nurturing, actually. And I've learned to become more nurturing, and I've learned to expand on that practice for myself. I've learned what that feels like in my body, what my mind is thinking when I'm nurturing. And so then I more prompt myself when the opportunities come up to like intentionally be nurturing. But I could easily slip into, I should be naturally nurturing, and I'm going to judge myself because I'm not. And then it goes into also where it's like these super boss women who are not like mousy and not like, oh, I'm not gonna have an opinion, I'm just gonna go with the flow, I'm not gonna say anything too outlandish to go and appease the norm. And it's like, that doesn't work, and we know that doesn't work. Actually, we know that what works as a whole, as a collective, as a society, is when women actually use their voice, they step into those powerful roles, they actually are not the traditionally nurturing. And that's not to say that they don't have an aspect of themselves that is that. I think I think we all have the capability. Yes. I think that is the way I would personally describe that. I don't know that naturally we're anything. It's like
no, that's a good distinction, because I think it is important. Like, I think for me personally, what I felt like I'm also like not typically on the more nurturing side. You know, I think for me, it comes out with my dog, if anything. Like, I find myself, I'm like, oh, I guess I am. But I think it's something that, I mean, men and women, I think more so the way I think of it is like, if we make the conscious effort to do it, I think we find that it's easier to tap into than some of us may anticipate.
Yeah. And so I think that goes back to saying like, we're all capable of it.
Yeah.
And I love that you included men in there, because like people could think men are not naturally whatever, like nurturing, vulnerable, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, it's actually, we're all just conditioned. And like you're saying, there are things that feel more comfortable to some of us than others. We are quicker to go there than others, but we're all absolutely capable of accessing that.
Yeah. And I think like even the word nurturing can be even interpreted too a little bit. Like, it doesn't, like, I think when we think nurturing, we're automatically like, oh, we're feeding, we're taking care of. But
I think of like the cozy, like mother.
Yeah, like the warm fuzzy. Yeah, when it's actually like, I think there's a lot of different ways to nurture. You could nurture a cause by like using your voice and getting out there and, you know, advocating. Yeah. There's, and actually just kind of like while we're in the same thing, what you were saying too about, this was something interesting that popped up on my feed yesterday. It was something that like Lana Del Rey posted. And honestly, I'm not like too well versed in the situation of what happened, but apparently there was something controversial, and all this to say I read her explanation of whatever the controversial thing was. And there was like, the beginning of the paragraph was about how basically it seemed like it was, to me, my interpretation was that there needs to be some room at the table for like the not super like boss bitch kind of women, you know what I mean? Like in this movement, which I think is super important. I feel like we've given like, it's very easy to like go from like the spotlight being on men to the spotlight being on women who are like super boss bitch and like in their masculine energy, which like we should break down also masculine, feminine. So pause on that. So there's masculine energy a lot, and then, you know, making room at the table for like, okay, you don't have to fit that type to be a powerful woman. So actually let's go to the masculine feminine energy too.
I think that ties in super nicely actually with what we were just talking about like naturally anything. It's like some people lean into the feminine, it's more comfortable, that's what their go-to is. Not to say that is their only go-to. And then the same thing, like, so I personally lean into the masculine as my go-to, and then feminine for some things.
Yeah, I think that's, and for anyone who's not aware, so like masculine, feminine energies, it's not like just what it, I think I'm not going to say what it's not, I'm just going to say what it is. So the way I would describe it, like very high level, is like masculine energy and feminine energy, everyone has a little bit of both, or, you know, a lot of both. And, you know, men and women, and masculine energy is more associated with like doing and achieving and dominating or conquering and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, like really just like, yeah, doing, providing, like things like that. And I think the feminine side is more about the being and the, I don't know, what else would you call it? Like the flow, or
I would say it's that nurturing. It's that like I would say one's a harsher approach and one's like a softer approach.
Yeah.
And I say that without judgment, without making one wrong or right, whatever. But it's definitely that. And also to say that both of them are equally powerful if you make them.
Yep. I completely agree. That's something like you and I both are more lean towards the masculine in certain things.
Yeah, I can be harsh.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
I'm like, can we do this? Can we do it now? Can we do it right?
Yes. And now I'm impatient. So.
I'm like, that took you 5 seconds too long. Let's like recap on why that was wrong.
Yeah. So, I mean, but the benefit is that we're like high achievers, right? That's great.
Yeah. We get a lot of shit done, and we
we create,
on it.
do all that shit. Yeah. And then for me, like the power when I'm in my feminine, which is like what I'm trying to do right now, I'm probably more, you know, I'm a softer approach, so I'm probably more attractive in my relationships. Like even with like friends and stuff, when I'm just being more of like in my compassion and listening a little bit softer, it's like more of like a warm place to like, I don't know, or like a soft place to kind of like
land.
Yeah, land. And I also feel like feminine's more about like lightness and playfulness.
Yeah.
And that's super important. Like I know for me, and I'm operating in my masculine a lot, it's like super heavy. It's just like, you know, it gets to be just like a little bit like I don't know, like a cloud.
Yeah. For me, the easy distinction, because I'm someone who overthinks a lot, is like when I'm in my masculine, I'm in my head, and when I'm in my feminine, I'm in my heart.
Yeah.
And I could easily tell the difference between which one I'm in. Yeah. And so I'm like, am I overthinking this? Am I thinking too much? Am I getting stuck? Am I like, how can I right this wrong? How can I fix this problem? Or am I like, trust the universe, everything will be okay, like just love them?
Yeah. And I think an important distinction here too is not to say that like, oh, women, we operate from emotions. You know, that's like every like, you know, political TV show where a woman's running for office, they're like, well, she can't be, you know, president because she works from her emotions, blah, 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 whatever. So I think it's important that even though it's like head and heart, it's not to say that one is like worse than the other. I think it's like more so like the focus on or like one's right, you know, like I think speaking from your heart and like tapping in there doesn't necessarily you're operating from emotions, because actually I think emotions really reside in your head, you know.
Well, honestly, oh my god, this just like opened a whole can of worms. Let's go. Okay. So I feel like so first and foremost, what you said, there's no right and wrong. Like that would be to say like there's feminine and masculine and one's right and one's wrong, and that's just not true. And so I love that you said that. But what you said about emotions, I operated from a place of don't access your emotions, like they get in the way. I actually prided myself on being emotionless for a long time. I was like, I could have someone die, I could like lose a job, I could like have all these horrific things happen to me, and I am good. And like that was like my stamp, like my little trophy I kept in the back of my mind, like I'm capable. And I learned that it actually is so much more powerful. I make so much of a larger impact. I connect with people on a way better scale when I'm actually tapping into the emotion. Emotion is the key to everything, I have found. If you can actually tap into your emotion and do it in a way where you can use it as a tool, as something that's not scary, as something that is actually there to support you and lead you and guide you, then your decision making is so much more aligned. And I'll speak for myself, it's so much more aligned to me. When I have tapped into my emotion, I have made so much of a larger impact than anything else I've ever done. And I know that when I'm actually operating from a place that lacks that emotion, regardless of head or heart or whatever, then I am not accomplishing what I set out to do. Easy. Like I can go into a conversation and be like, I'm disconnected right now. I'm not going to make any sort of connection. I'm not going to have the impact that I want. Or I could go into a place of like, I'm just really in my heart right now. I'm going to call 10 people. And all of those conversations are amazing. And they're so connected and so loving. And so much more gets done in terms of relationships, in terms of anything, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And that's like, you know, a lot of the work that you and I are into, like that's, you know, through what we met is like emotional intelligence. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the big things is it's like, you know, if you don't know how to, I don't like the word control, but that's, I think what's typically in the phrase is like, if you don't know how to control your emotions, they control you. And so it's not that we like don't have emotions or that we banish them or anything, but it's that we know how to interact with them in a way that best serves us. You know, like
Yeah.
it's
It's
like
our relationship to them.
exactly. Yeah. And how we utilize them and our awareness of them and of others. That's the EQ portion of it. So that
Mm-hmm.
we can operate with others and ourselves in a way that is going to like be best aligned with whatever our intention is, whatever we're creating. And
Yeah.
so I love what you what you said about that, because emotions excuse me, you know, it's like you could give, I guess one way I think about it is it's like if someone's giving a keynote keynote speaker or something at a conference, and they, you know, give the same speech twice, once where they have no emotion
Yeah.
and it's the same script, it's the same PowerPoint, they're using everything, and one where they use emotion and they're like out of their minds excited or vulnerable or whatever the thing is, passionate, like that's what inspires people. That's what creates results. You know, if it was all about
Mm-hmm.
like the logistics, the mechanics, and just thinking about it, then, you know, no one would go listen to keynote speakers because they'd be bored out of their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
Yeah. And the visual I just got when you said that was like almost yin and yang. Like masculine and feminine have that push and pull with each other. They exist because of the other. And if you can create that balance for you, whatever that looks like for you, then you can have like that super aligned, like super powerful life.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you can't exclude one and you can't overcompensate for the other, you know?
yeah. I love, yeah, yin and yang. That's the perfect. We're back to the monks. That's like
Yeah.
the no, that's the perfect way to explain that. So I do want to like circle back, because I think
Hmm.
everything we've talked about, like especially the masculine and feminine, um, how it is with our inner authority, like how
Yeah.
our inner authority may lean one way, and how we can be aware of that and start thinking about how we can bring a little bit and invite a little bit of the other into our life. You know, like maybe you're someone that really, really is always putting, you know, is always the soft place, but isn't really you know, they're so just kind of like in the beingness, but they're not really, you know, creating or doing things with that. Like, then maybe you invite a little bit of that masculine energy in. And I think it's just being aware of like, what can I use more of? And especially in any given situation, you know,
Hmm.
maybe it's like, you know, my sister comes to me and you know, she's in a breakdown over something, and it's my opportunity to step so into my like feminine and just be that like nurturing, loving, compassionate, just space for her, like very focused out. And
I think that it's also really important to talk about the fact that we are capable of both. And I know that we've said that, but in terms of inner authority, it's like your inner authority, trusting yourself, like your internal GPS, whatever you want to call it, knowing that it's multifaceted and that you have so many parts of yourself that you can access that are your tools, that are yours and yours only.
yeah.
Because I often hear people putting themselves in a box, and I have done this myself also, where it's like I get to operate in a box, this is who I am, and then I'll see other people who maybe lean one way or the other, masculine or feminine, maybe operate from their heart more than their head, and I'm like, I want to be that person. Why am I not that person? And it goes back to the naturally piece also. It's like they're naturally that way and I'm not naturally that way, and I judge myself and I keep myself in this box. And when I free myself, you're like, you know what? They're capable of it. I'm capable of it too. It might look a little different, and that's okay. Like, I have it within me. This is who I am. This is who they are. Like, like really giving ourselves the opportunity to explore different parts of ourselves, I feel is super important also to the inner authority, like, and influences our decisions and what we
Yeah.
create.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Like, I think it's like giving ourselves permission to
Mm-hmm.
and have like what we like to call like a just notice moment. Like, there's no judgment. Like, where do my natural inclinations fall for me as a person, and where do I want to go? Where do I see, like, what part of myself could I invite a little bit more of to show up, to be able to just, and I think it's important we just like play with it, like it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
such a
One of the biggest
heavy
things
thing.
is,
Yeah.
like, for ourselves, for what we're doing. This is one of the main things I work with clients on, is just releasing the judgment.
Mhm.
And I personally have made a practice of just noticing, like you're saying, when I practice judgment, being aware of it, then deciding what I want to do with it. But first, just noticing it. Where am I mostly judgmental? Where is it that I get triggered into judgment? Like,
Mhm.
all those things. It's
Yeah.
so limiting, and it's so, like, in my experience, miserable to be in in that space.
Yeah. And what's interesting, like, I think when listening to one's own inner authority, I think self-judgment and a lack of self-trust is like, can be really evident, and is why
Hmm.
people don't act on it. And I think as women, we've been conditioned at times to like not trust ourselves, or
Yeah.
to not like go off of our instincts, and whatever the thing is, like, we have a lot more parameters and boxes to fit ourselves into. So how dare we, kind of explore anything else? So, what would you say for someone who lacks self-trust? Like, how would you recommend they go about their conversation with their own inner authority?
I would say for trust, it is a couple different things that they get to look at. So first and foremost, the awareness piece. Like, because if we're not aware and we're not truly willing to be honest with ourselves, then we're going to continue to operate in these spaces and think that it's good enough. And it's not actually taking the raw needed look at it so that we can actually curb it. And the temptation is to stay in those spaces, like, but the actual growth is outside of that. And so first and foremost, the awareness. Then the other piece is like, okay, where in the past have I been told, or like have my actions, like, and just me with me, where have I, like, broken my trust with myself? What has my relationship been to my trust? What has it felt like when I have trusted myself? Because we are people who want evidence. Humans want evidence. They're like, evidence that that's safe, evidence that that's not safe. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, if you want evidence, look at yourself. You have this wealth of information. Look at where you've trusted, look at where you've not. And then go into, in any given moment, checking in. Like, if you're checking in and you're making the decisions that are authentic based on that checking in, then you gain and you start to build out a life that is completely yours, and you actually like make the evidence that supports your ability to trust.
Yeah. Like we have the capability and the power to
Yeah.
create the reality and the interpretation that really truly serves us and honors that inner authority.
Yeah. And so it goes back to the honoring piece. Like if I have a history and I'm like making the decisions that are honoring myself in any given moment, I can trust myself to have my best interest at heart. And then I can trust in my capability to follow through.
Yeah. And I
versus
think
like the other, option where it's like, I'm not honoring myself. I'm making decisions that make my life harder. I'm not going to trust myself to have my best interest at heart.
Yeah. And I think once you start trusting yourself and you just take, maybe for someone, it's just taking that first leap to like, oh, I'm going to do that thing that, I don't know, my head's telling me, maybe it's too uncomfortable or it seems like too big of a stretch, but my heart's like, yeah, that's what I really want. And once you like take that first step and you find out that you're still alive and, and that like, you're still alive, you're fine, you're here, because it's like, we're literally trying to keep ourselves safe, right? Like our instincts are working really hard to do that and like love you, but shut the fuck up sometimes. And I think once we find, anyways, what I'm saying, land the plane, once we find that it's not as scary as we think, then it's kind of a contagious feeling. Like we start, doing it more and more. And I think that's when we find ourselves more aligned. Like it's all the work that you and I, have done together, and the similar workshops and everything. It's all about like getting more and more in tune with that inner authority and that emotional intelligence in order to live your life from that place without the bars of the, that voice that we all have in our head that's telling us, no, you can't do it. And that's been collecting evidence as to why you can't do it the whole time. Because it loves you and wants to keep you safe, but it also needs to like take a hike.
Yeah, that's some of the like most amazing work that I do with some of my clients is that shadow work, and that like, thank you for keeping me safe, and thank you for all that you've done for me, and thank you for always having my back, and also I don't need you right now, to that judgment, to that anger, to that whatever's not working that you don't want.
That's beautiful. I think so often we think that we have to like banish those feelings of like anger or sadness or whatever, and that they'll just go away, when in reality like that's always going to be a part of you. And so it's like, how can you meet that with compassion and gratitude? I think that's beautiful. I love that shadow work. I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Learning.
Well, I mean, yeah, I there's one thing before that we talked about early on. I think we should circle back on it because I do think there could be some confusion. So when it comes to like inner authority, that's not to say that you still can't, let's say you're religious and you pray to God, like that can still very much be your avenue for, I think it's important that like we kind of touch on how you can still have those external authorities, but like making sure that they really feel good. And I feel like you don't really know that your inner authority.
I think that the simplest thing that anyone can do is check in. If the external authority that you're operating under aligns with you, makes you feel good, makes you feel like this is a place I want to be, I need to be, then no issue, but we get in the conflict within ourselves and don't trust ourselves and don't honor ourselves and all of that, go down the rabbit hole when we're not checking in, and then we have external authorities that we're listening to like blindly that don't align. And then we wake up at the end of our life, and then so on and so forth.
No, I think that's such a good point though, because I know for me, I've had like kind of dangerous times where I like, where I had, You know, I had a friend who loves me, but actually gives
Mhm.
shitty advice. And I don't necessarily, I used to like go with, I'm like, oh, wow. Like, you know, they're someone I consider like an authority figure in my life of, you know, my emotions and what I'm up to. And, you know, I think in retrospect, I was like, wow, that was actually like either projecting or like
Mhm.
them really not actually listening, or you know, just overall just like, no, that's not going to be my truth, that's not my story. And it's really important that we like check in on that, even with the people that we do like, even if they love and care for us, it doesn't mean they don't love and care for us if we decide to not, you know, go with their advice, pretty much. Because
Mhm.
you know, feedback and advice only means something until you assign your own value to it. But the thing is that we as humans, and I think in women, like, you know, it's been kind of taught that we, you know, we bitch and moan to each other instead of like empower each other, right? And like
Mhm.
historically, it's kind of what we've been like taught to do and interact with each other. And you know, I think it's just like taking a step back and actually asking, like, is this really land for me? Like, is this important? Does this empower me?
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think that, go ahead, sorry.
no, because I think we will literally change our behavior based on,
Yeah.
that's the scary part. Like, if you have someone who's actually not totally focused out on you and your situation and like is emotionally intelligent enough to like give you great advice,
Like
then you're literally
unbiased
going to,
feedback.
yeah, you're literally going to change your behavior you could change your behavior on what they said. And that's like really dangerous.
So I just had this light bulb moment, and this is like learning for me. But I just had this light bulb moment where, very simply put, the difference between inner and outer authority is, outer authority is when you check in with everyone else outside of yourself and then decide what's right for you and
Mm,
how you should feel.
yeah.
And inner authority is checking in with you first and then deciding how you feel, what you want, and having that projected out.
Yeah. And that is a very succinct and like perfect way to put it. And can I just say that when you operate from your inner authority, it shows to others. And that's a very like enrolling place to come from. You know, like I think that people it's like almost like a vibe. I don't know. It's just like very powerful. And I think it's something that like really attracts people to you and your ideas and like makes you more impactful in the world.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, like I personally, when I see someone who has a very strong inner authority, a very strong sense of themselves, I personally give them a lot of respect. And not to say that I don't give other people respect, like if they're not as solidly grounded in that, but it is to say that I definitely go about things a little bit differently. And it's because I know that they are going to operate with a certain level of knowing, a certain level of respect for themselves, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So
Yeah.
it's like, for me, I think I just honestly just touch into that place of
Yeah.
like, okay, like I'm operating right now in a place where they know themselves and I know myself. So what
Right.
we create from there, I don't have to necessarily be overly conscientious of, be like, and I say that, let me give a tangible example because some people might not understand what I mean by that. So an example is like, my partner is someone who questions himself a lot. And so it's like, I'll say something from a place of, I know that this is where I am coming from. It feels authentic and genuine to me. Like, to me, it feels aligned. But I then, as an extra step, would check in with him in an effort to have him foster that for himself, that check in. Like, I'll
Mm-hmm.
be like, I would do this. What are you feeling? Like, what do you want to do? You know?
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by like operate a little bit differently. So if I'm talking to someone who already has that knowing and is already grounded in that, I might not go the extra mile to check in because I know that kind of what they're putting out, emitting is already in that place. But and that might be something that for some women who are there and want to support others in their lives and getting there, you know, their friends, their mother, their kids, whatever, is like asking them powerful questions also.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I think that was awesome, because I think it's like, not only can we honor our own inner authority, but also others. And that makes both parties involved more grounded and trusting in one another and themselves, is like what I'm hearing. So not only can you do those check-ins with yourself, but if you are giving, you know, maybe a friend is asking you to be their sounding board and for advice or something in your opinion, it is important. I think we have a responsibility to then ask, does this, like, what do you think? You know, like, what are your thoughts on this matter? Like, if you were giving advice to yourself, like, what would you say? Like, there's a lot of different ways we can pose the question, but just like you said, like, what are your thoughts on it? Like, that's just super important, because it gives someone the opportunity to, like, your brain is naturally then inquisitive. Like, if I just say something, you don't start, like, your brain doesn't start, you know, like if I said that car is red, like your brain isn't going anywhere, right? It's not generating any additional new information. It's not going there. But if I say, what color is that car? You start getting a little inquisitive. And so it's like a very basic example, but if we're doing that to ourselves, like, it automatically triggers their brain to be more inquisitive and like introspective. And I think that's really important, because it's then like being conscientious of the fact that I may be an external authority to someone, and it's important that I act with responsibility in that as well.
Yeah. And I think that, to go back to the awareness piece, which is key, is like to know where our brain goes in those conversations, and then to then see how that works for other people. So if I know in my brain that when I'm checking in with myself, I might question, or I might people please, I might not honor myself because I think that that's what is expected of me, and then I ask that question to someone in my life, and I kind of recognize in them what I see in myself and what I see happens for me, then you can take it another step further and ask even more powerful questions like, are you sure? Like, you know, I know that, and acknowledging whatever might happen for them based on our own experience, not projecting our experience, but but just giving them the option without judgment, so that they know that they have it, you know, because at one point in time we might not have known that we had it, and we convinced ourselves, and until we got to that place, that's where we operated from. So we know that other people are there.
Right. Yeah, that's really powerful. I feel like that's a very important like component of the inner authority, is also on the flip side, how does that make us responsible for how we show up to others in the world too? Oh my gosh, so much gold, so much goodness. This was like
gold.
I'm so glad we listened to our own inner authorities. It's funny, we were saying before this started, I was like, I have no questions. We were chatting the other night, catching up, and I was like, oh my God, this topic would be great. And then just totally winged it. So it feels good, because it's just like, you know, listening to our own intuition and our own higher selves, whatever the thing is. And this was really amazing. I feel like there's so much food for thought.
I know, so juicy.
So juicy. So many juicy details. We could go on and on and on.
Yeah. I like using the word juicy because I feel like it's like,
I know, it's juicy. The word
like
juicy
spicy.
Is juicy. Yeah, it is. I don't know. It's so yummy. Like, there's not another way to like describe it, but it is. It's juicy goodness. I love it. Well, cool. Okay. I think that we've like really covered the topic of inner authority. Where can people get to know you better and find you and be involved in your communities?
Yeah, so a couple different places. So I have savvyartistry.com, where anybody can learn about my communities, the mastermind that I lead, the coaching program that I have for women. All of it's there. I'm Sabby Artistry on Facebook and Instagram, and then my groups are called Leaders Who Love and then Walking in Beauty.
Awesome. And Sabby Artistry is SABI Artistry.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Yeah, she posts great content, very inspirational stuff. I'm always like, what's on Sabrina's story today?
Yeah. And it's usually just like, oh yeah, that spoke to me. Let me just post that.
Yes. I love the one last night of the baby Yoda holding a crystal. And it was me on my way to my friend's house with the exact crystal that'll help manifest their best self.
Yeah.
That was cracking me up because I literally had, I had just gotten back from a crystal shop and I was like, this is awesome.
Or I think one before that I was cracking up about was, it's like my employees think, I mean, not my employees, my coworkers think I'm normal. And then it's like me outside of work and it's like a pug in a field with like a witch's hat.
Just as Gandalf. It's a pug in a field dressed as Gandalf. I reposted this because I literally watched The Hobbit last night after going to a fucking crystal shop. And I saw that and I was like, oh, holy shit. I feel like called out. I feel like let me go like sage my house.
Oh my God.
It's just I'm a walking stereotype. But that was hilarious.
Yeah, so come to my pages for more things like that.
For more of that shit. It's good stuff though. I love it.
I love it too.
Well, this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing like wisdom and knowledge and creativity. This was so beautiful. And yeah, I'm excited. Please follow her on Instagram, listen to the podcast, just go and subscribe, give us your feedback on your inner authority and like your relationship with it. Really be curious to hear about that.
Yeah, please do, because honestly, it's just going to get better and better. And part of even starting your own journey is like tapping into these things. So if you have it, utilize it.
Yeah. If you don't, no, that doesn't apply. But I was going to say, if you don't use it.
I feel like I'm like powerful suggestion. And you were like, let me wave my little flag in the background. I'm like, go team.
Go team. Yes, exactly. Okay. Oh, all right, I'm gonna end this.
You're like, all right, bye.
Okay, Okay, thank you everybody for listening.
Yes, I love you all. Bye.
Thank you so much for being a part of the council today. You can share this episode and tag me on Instagram at the DJ Genesis. That's the DJ JENESIS, or on Facebook at the Council Pod. Make sure to leave a review and subscribe. And if you'd like to share your takeaways or what you'd like to see, you can email us at hello@thecouncilpod.com. See you next time.